Well, it's good to be here tonight, and I just want to welcome everyone that's here, and of course I want to welcome the online viewers, and if you have just clicked on or you're watching from your phone or from your screen or whatever that might be, let me just say that you are just as welcome here tonight with what we're doing now whenever you're watching this. So I just wanted to make mention and thank you for being there. Tonight I want to talk about a series that Heart House is about to launch called 24/7. And I've been chatting to Sam about it, and he's going to be talking to his team about it, and they're just sort of going to unroll it. But 24/7 has got a number of concepts behind it in this series that we're about to start. What I'm going to talk to you today is about church being 7 days a week. So that's the title of my message. Church is a 7-day-a-week process. Church is not just something that you go to at 5 p.m. on a Sunday. And if you are a Christ follower and you are a part of the church, then it's not about being part of what's happening right here for this hour and a half that we're involved in, or what you're doing online. It's not just a part, an hour or so that we put away. Matthew 16 says this, and I want to read this out to you. It says this, Jesus replied, it says, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven." And so there's something that Simon understood, and Jesus stopped in the midstream of whatever he was doing, and he said, "This is a big deal, and you've caught this. This is not just something that everybody has just thought about, and oh yeah, we do this at the temple. You are catching the very essence of why I'm here." He then goes on and says this. He says, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock," which means on this revelation, on this understanding, on what I'm talking to you about tonight, "I will build my church," Jesus said. And then he said this, "And the gates of Hades," or hell, "will not overcome it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Jesus did not come to earth, and he did not walk around. He did not build disciples. He did not, put all the information that's there in the Bible. He did not die on a cross so that we could do something for an hour and a half on a Sunday once a week. That's not why he came. And when he said, "I'm going to build my church," he's not saying, "Hey, I'm here, everybody stop, this is an amazing revelation, I'm going to build my church. This guy, he's got it. Guess what? From now on, we're going to the temple every single Sunday, and we're going to stay there for an hour and a half, and that's going to be the church, and we're going to be part of it." That's not what he thought. That is not what the understanding was. And I want to help you understand this and break this open a little bit about what we are as Christians are actually a part of, what we are building. Jesus was not wanting to put a building or a service on. Jesus wanted to build an army of Christ followers that he called the church. And I use the word army because he has stuff for us to do. He has things that only an army can do together. He has things that only a village can take care of. He has things that it's going to take more than one person to get this job done. When we look down from history after Jesus died, and he wanted to put a church together, an army that worked, that marched, that followed, that believed 7 days a week. Now I want to show you something on this calendar that I brought up here, and hopefully you can see this. This was pretty roughly drawn up. We did it just before the service. This is what represents a week. You can see there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can see the day, 7 days in the week. You can also notice that it's only a 12-hour calendar, not a 24-hour calendar, just a 12-hour calendar, probably because I didn't want to draw another 12 lines. But, pretend there's another 12 hours on the back. But if our day starts at 6 o'clock in the morning And then we've got a calendar all the way down to 6 o'clock at night. And then that goes for 7 days a week. Do you think that Jesus died simply for this little bit down here? And let's just really colour it in. Let's try and make it big. Let's try and make it bold. Let's try and make it stand out. Let's leave everything else blank on the rest of the... it's a bit hard to get up when you're old. On the rest of the calendar there. And this is when you're the church. That is when you go to church. That is what Jesus died for. Out of all of this, he died for this hour. Out of all of this, he died that you could be a good Christian. Out of all of this, he died that, at 5 o'clock, you can put on your best clothes, put on your best jeans, get your bum bag ready for travel when we're going overseas. Get your boots on, get your nice watch on, put your shirt on, have a shower, put some deodorant on. Look your very, very best. Even if you're fighting in the car with your husband or your wife, your kids, shut up in the back there, that's it, I'm going to friggin' kill you. But door opens at church. Hey guys, good to be here at Heart House. Looking forward to the pizza tonight and hoping the service is going to be great. Even if you give it your best shot to make sure that hour looks so awesome and amazing, it's not what Jesus calls the church. That's not what he died for. That's not the revelation that came out in here. And I want to talk to you about how we are Christ followers. We are Christians 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, not just on that one spot. And it's got to change our mindset to realise what God has done for you and what you've signed up for and what being a Christ follower actually means. I read that thing that says, the gates of hell, I will build my church and the gates of hell will not overcome it. Do you think that the devil up there strategically planning how to completely ruin the world just works for that hour? How can I stop them getting to church? How can I stop them from listening? How can I stop them entering into worship? How can I stop from giving them any revelations? How can I put a bit of a shield and really, really, get them into hell and wreck this hour up? But the rest of the time, holiday, 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 sleep in, holiday, jet skiing, holidaying, chatting with God, flying around Mars, doing nothing. That's just Sunday. Then we've got another day and another day and another day and another day and another day. And he's just kicking back, just chilling, waiting to stop the church on 5 p.m. Do you think that's how he works? So if he is not on holiday, if he, the enemy, is not trying to stop us from being the church on this one spot on Sunday, then why do we think the church is only operating for 1 hour and don't understand that we as Christ followers are the church, and church actually is 24/7, 7 days a week, because you are the church, and wherever you go, that is where the church goes, that is where the power goes, that is where the binding goes, that is where the loosing goes, that is where the gates of hell don't prevail. It's not when you get out of the car when you've got the kids being nice. It's not when you walk into church and pretend to hold hands in the worship, yet 10 minutes earlier you're telling her how you're going to kill her because she didn't whatever. It's all the time. It's all the time. It's not just here, it's all of the time. The enemy doesn't rest Monday to Fridays, and we shouldn't do it as all. If we don't take the time off from being a Christian, then the enemy is not taking time off. I'll tell you a story. This is like obviously since I've retired from being the pastor here, but one of the things I did was I went for a ride on my Harley, and I was heading to Tasmania. It was raining, so I just went the other direction. Ended up in the Gulf of Australia. So, there's Darwin, and then there's the tippy top, Cape, and then there's the Gulf that's between these two. And I thought, I've never been there, I'm going to go and ride there. So I ride my bike out back Queensland, New South Wales, Queensland. I ride it all the way up to the top, to the very Gulf. And on my way up there, I chipped or I bit on something weird in my mouth, and it cracked one of my teeth. And as I'm riding up to the Gulf, my tooth is getting sorer and sorer. My helmet that it's on, it wasn't because I looked in the mirror, but it felt like my cheek was getting bigger and bigger, and it was pushing on my helmet, and I could feel it, on the tooth, and it was just getting sore and sore. So when I got to the Gulf, I thought, I can't stand this any longer. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the Gulf was the middle of nowhere. How I got there was in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing out there. And I thought, I really need to get to a dentist bad. So what I did was I thought, you know what? I'm going to ride from the Gulf to Cairns in one day. I'm not stopping anywhere else. That's it. I'm getting on my bike. It's like a 900-kilometre journey. I'm going to get down there, crank it up, maybe not, a touch over the speed limit, it's debatable, and I'm going to get across there to Cairns today. So I jump on my bike, I see this, sunset over the west, and the next day I'm going to see the sunrise over the east. And I get on my bike, and I am cracking it to get over to Cairns that night. And halfway across, I stopped for petrol, and I stopped for a break, and I just stopped to get a drink and just to sort of settle down. And I'm in this town, I kid you not, there's 50 people that live in this town. And all of them, it was actually a Sunday, but all of them were in this cafe, and the whole town was there, like all 20 of them that were out. And they're serving and that, and a whole bunch of them were sitting around a big table. Everybody knew everyone else, and I'm just sitting there by myself, doing my thing, and on the edge of the cafe, and I hear that the main table, they go, "Oh, there's Peggy," and there's this one car drives across the one street that was in front of the cafe. And the other goes, "Oh, what is she doing? How come she's not here? What's she up to now?" And the other one goes, "Oh, she's going to church. She goes to church every Sunday, and that's what she does." And then the other one goes, "Well, why would she go to church? That's stupid. Don't you know that church is a bunch of rubbish?" And they were just ragging on it, right? Anyway, next thing, the car comes back again because obviously she had not finished church. She had already been over, and she's on her way back. And she pulls in and comes into the cafe. She walks into that cafe, and I'm just watching it, the whole table just said, "How you going, Peggy? What have you been doing?" And they knew what she'd been doing because I'd heard they knew. When there's not much going on in this town. And she goes, "Oh, I've been to church." "Why do you go to church for? Why do you still bother going to church? What's the point of going there? Well, no one else is going to church. No one goes there anymore. It's out of date." And they're just ragging on her. And she just said, "Oh, well, I like going," and she didn't really know what to say. And they're just giving it to her. So anyway, I finish up. And I'm just sitting there, and she's just sitting on another table, just sort of on the outside of them, and a few of them walked in to get something else to eat. And I walked up to her, and I said, "Listen, I just want to tell you something." I said, "You know what they're saying to you about no one's going to church?" I said, "Number one, it's not true." I said, "I'm a retired pastor. I retired about 4 weeks ago. And I said, I'm on a ride on my Harley." I said, "I ran a church for 25 years, and I worked with hundreds, if not thousands of young people around the world over that 25 years. I said, there is a lot of young people that are still in our church and generational church. Lots of people go to church all the time." And I said, "Don't listen to them." I said, "People are going to church." Anyway, she just looked at me, and she said, can I just speak to you for a minute?" And me, I'm going, "Well, you can, but I've already said what I want to say, so I'm trying to get to Cairns, and it's like a long way. This is what I'm thinking." And I thought, nah, if she wants to talk to me, I've stepped into the conversation. I am standing up for her, encouraging her. I'm going to listen. And then she stops me, and she said, "I want to let you know," she goes, "I've come from a really broken family." She said, "My husband used to beat me up," and she said it was just a terrible situation. She said, "We ended up getting divorced," and she said, "I've moved out to a town like this, but it was one that's a little bit further away." And she said, "I was so stressed out and so overwhelmed with what had happened in my situation with what had happened." She said, "I actually went blind." And she said, for 2 weeks, she said, I couldn't see anything. She said it was pitch black for 2 weeks. And she said, after about 2 weeks, she said, I started to see this light in my eyes. And she said, and I went to sleep that night, and the next day I woke up, and she said, I could see, and she said, I knew it was God that did it. She knew nothing about God, okay? She wasn't a church person. She said, so I opened up my Bible, I read a little bit about it, I looked up, I went to a church. She ended up going to a normal Pentecostal church, just like ours, just the same sort of beliefs that we have, pretty, normal sort of church in my eyes. And she said, it was just amazing. She said, but then I had to move to this town. And she said, I've been going to church here. She said, there's no pastor in this town. She said, the pastor drives 3 hours from another town to do the service in this town once a week on Sunday. She said, I'm the only person that turns up to church. And she said, the pastor told me today that he would no longer be coming back out here because he has to drive 6-hour round trip. And she said, I'm the only one that turns up. And he let me know today that he wasn't going to come back. And she goes, I'm just devastated. She goes, no one in this town believes in God. She said, the pastor's not coming back. She said, there's no more church service. And I sat her down and I said this to her. I said, the church is not the building that you go to for 1 hour on a Sunday, whether he turns up or not. I said, you are the church, and God and his Spirit lives inside of you. I said, you got nothing to fear. I said, because you are the church and God lives inside of you. And I said, furthermore, I said, there's plenty of things that are out there on the apps. I told her about the Heart House app. I showed her how to get onto it. I showed her how she could watch messages every week. I told her how she could do this. And, Sam's was up here last week and saying, I can't believe, our statistics going up, and there's so many people watching from around Australia and even around the world. But he doesn't know that somebody, and this is only one person, was the church outside of church that helped someone realise that it wasn't the end of the world if the church shut, and she could still be the church and belong to church. And then she gave me this big poem thing, and she was a writer, and she gave me this poem that had a testimony on it. She'd printed thousands of them out and wanted to give them out, and gave me one, and all this sort of stuff. And I want to make this point to you. Forget about what's happening right here at 5 p.m. Who are the Peggies that need you to be the church when you're not here in this one little spot that you've allocated to go to church? You're not going to church. You are the church. We gather together as the church, but that's because we're all gathering together to be the church, and we have to take these blinders off about this one little red spot on the whole flippin' calendar and realise that when we're out there, that's when we're the church. That's when God's lining it up. That's when God's speaking to people. And who are the Peggies that you've missed because you're in such a rush to get from point A to point B? Now, I understand you had a legit excuse. Man, my tooth had been killing me for like 5 days up to this point. I was in desperado mode to get to Cairns to try and find a dentist that could operate. And by the way, God opened up a door, and the very next day I got operated on and the tooth got pulled, and it was just amazing from getting there at nearly midnight and then getting an operation taken out at 10 o'clock in the morning without an appointment. But God will take care of your appointments if you take care of his appointments that he's lining up for you. And we've got to realise church is 7 days a week. 24/7, not the square that we allocate on our calendar. Another thing, I'll tell you about Max. Max is, obviously, I run a little shop down in Cat-Eye now, a little fishing shop and e-bike shop and stuff. It's just a little shop. And it's just basically, Cherie says, you know what, I'm at home, and if we're not working, you're not going to be at home the whole time either, otherwise neither of us will be home, if you know what I mean. So go and do something. So I'm down there the other day, and I've been down there for 6 months. And this young guy comes in, he's called Max, and right next to where my shop is, there's a bunch of units there. They're pretty rough. And a lot of these units are used for when people come either out of prison or they've come out of prison and they've got nowhere to go, so they stay there until the government can find them somewhere else to go. It's not well publicised, but that's just the demographic type. And it's a pretty people have had a pretty hard life living in these units. I don't think they're bad people. I like them a lot. I get on with them very well. I know most of them. They've just had a bad life for whatever reason has come down that track. And Max is probably about 11. And Max always comes in and says, "Oh, can I have a lolly from your lolly shop? Can I use this? Can I do that?" He's always asking for something. And, I give him a little bits and pieces and just sort of, build up a relationship with him. Anyway, he came in about a month ago and he said, "You reckon I could have some food?" This is from the takeaway next door, which is not my shop. And I said, "Why?" And he goes, he said, "Well, we didn't have any money." And he said, I didn't have any breakfast this morning. And I said, "Okay." This is like about 12 o'clock in the day. And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, what'd you have for dinner?" He goes, "No, we didn't have any dinner." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "My mum's run out of money and she hasn't got paid yet." And he said, "Hey, we had no dinner last night." And he said, "I've had no breakfast." He said, "It's now lunchtime." He said, "My mum doesn't get money until tomorrow." He said, "You reckon I could get something?" I said, "I'll tell you what." I said, "What do you want?" Anyway, he goes, "I want a snitty burger and chips and a drink." I said, "You know what?" I said, "I'm going to buy it for you." So I go next door, and actually I didn't say I'd buy it for him. I said, "I'll give you the money to buy it." So I gave him the money of what it would cost, and then he went over, he ordered it himself, he paid for it himself, he got it himself, then he come back into my shop with the food and he started eating. He goes, "Oh, thanks." He goes, "Thanks so much for that." He goes, That's really good." He said, "I was just starving." And I'm thinking to myself, who's living next to you? Who's the Max in your life that is living next to you that you haven't seen yet? He came in the next day and he said, "Do you reckon I could get another burger?" And I thought, you know what? I'm going to treat this kid like a son. Now, that means if you want a burger, you've got to earn it. You've got to work for it. I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll buy you a burger." I said, "If you do me a job." And he goes, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Well, what do you want?" He goes, just a burger." I said, "Well, for a burger, we're going to defrost this big freezer here." And we undid the freezer and turned it off, defrosted it. Me and him defrosted the whole freezer. He gets in the freezer, shoveling out the ice, and it's just massive piles of ice for this freezer hasn't been defrosted. And I said, "You know what? You can earn it." And when he did the job, then you can do it. And he goes, "Oh, that's great." So now he comes in, he goes, he said, "You got any jobs?" Which means he's looking for lollies, scooter hire, snitties. I don't know what he's looking for, just got any jobs. I said, "Yeah." I said, "What about you help me set up in the morning?" And so now he comes out there and when he's there, and he sets all the bikes up for me and sets all the e-bikes up and the scooters and all that sort of stuff. I said, "Yeah, there you go." I said, "You can have a lolly for that or a slushy, whatever else." And he comes and I said, "You can help me pack up." And I give him all these jobs. Anyway, he's like, "This is really, really good." So he comes in the other day and he goes, he said, what about money? Can I earn some money? I said, "Yeah." I said, "You can earn some money." I said, "What about you mow the lawn for me?" That hasn't been mowed for a while. Not mentioning any names, just getting a bit long. And I said, "What about you mow the lawn?" And he goes, "Oh, you're right." I said, "Well, I'll get the mower out and show him how to start it up." So I get it out, and because he's only like 9, I said, "Have you ever mowed the lawn?" He goes, Yeah. He goes, "Before my dad went to jail, I used to mow the lawn." And I said, "All right." I said, "Well, if that's okay, how long's he been there? Like, how long?" Anyway, start the mower up for him, and I say, "Now go down there in Australia." He goes down, and he goes like this, is left, right. He gets to the end of this square that I marked out for him on the other side of where my shop was, and then he turns the mower off. He goes, "How's that?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "That's good, but do it straight and do it another 10 times. And he goes, yeah, okay. Starts the mower up, tries to follow the line back and, get it back the other way, and then gets back to me where I am. This is like one lap now. Turns it off. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, how much do I have to do?" I said, "You have to do the whole lawn." I said, "It goes from there over to there." I said, "I'm giving you like $15 and a snitty burger, and you've only got to do this one square, and you've got to do it all." And he goes, "Oh, all right." I said, "Now, when you go down this time, don't turn the mower off. Go down and then come back without turning it off." So I'm doing all these hand signals, and starts it back up, goes down there, comes back, and he's done a strip about this wide now with about 10 attempts. And then he goes to me, "It's too hard." He says, "It's too hard to earn money." And I said, "You don't do the job, you don't get the money. Don't do the job, you don't get the snitty." And what I'm showing him is this. I'm treating him like I would my own kids. You've got to earn what you need. If you're going to get something for free, earn it. Do a job, work for it, which is what I teach my kids on how to do it. Anyway, he goes, "Yeah, all right." He said, "Well, don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the snitty burgers, and I'm going to go home and have a rest." I said, "All right." See you later. And then I had to mow the rest of that thing just to straighten it all up. But my point is that when I was doing that, this lady who was sitting in the car park in front of the dress shop, she starts the car up and she pulls up to right on the road where I am. And she calls me over. So I turn the mower off and I go over. I said, yeah, I said, because I'm the landlord then. I said, yeah. I said, what's happening? She goes, oh, I just want to say, she said, I was in there buying a dress, and she said, I was out there just doing some stuff on my phone, and I saw you teaching your son how to mow the lawn and how to start it up and how to go backwards and forwards. He said, I really wish that my husband would spend that much time with my son. And I looked at her and I said, that's not my son. I said, he's from those units over there, and I'm giving him jobs. She goes, yeah, but you were showing him how to start it, and you're telling him this and telling him that. She goes, it's just so good that someone would give someone like that some time. And then I thought to myself, with this message, who are your neighbours? Who are you fathering? Who are you mothering that's not yet your responsibility? It's not actually your kid, but you're the church. It may not be your biological child that you have to, show and protect and look after, but you're the church, and you're the church 7 days a week. And you're meeting Max over here, and you're meeting Peggy over here, and you're meeting, Bob over here. And if you don't see yourself as the church 7 days a week, you're going to confine this little spot of being desperate to get here for 5 p.m. with your nice clothes and everything in check, and you've got this little box filled out, but you haven't been the church 7 days a week. God doesn't need more churches that just go to church. What God needs is a church where the gates of hell that never go on rest will not prevail. What God needs is people that will actually do what He's asked them to do as Christ followers in a relationship with God, and not just talk about, I'm a Christian, I go to church. You are the church, and you operate 24/7, 7 days a week. And I want to encourage you how to go forward in this. Since I've been down there, and since I've been in that shop, which hasn't been very long, I have talked to Revivalist, which you don't know what it is, don't worry about it. They're just a Christian group that are extreme in one particular area, pushes people away instead of bringing them in, but it's only because they're extreme in one area. Good people. But I've talked to them and helped them, rethink that. I've talked to people that read tarot cards, and, they tell me about their point of view, and I tell them what God does. I've talked to New Age people that believe that crystals are going to heal them. I've talked to conspiracists that, you don't even want to know about the conspiracies, but I just simply just say to them, hey, you know what? No matter what's going on in the world, my God's in control. He made this world, and He's going to finish this world. So just remember that. And that's after all of the stories that they've got. I've talked to people that have backslidden and are now thinking about going back to church because I've told them what I did. So I always tell people, hey, I'm retired. They go, what do you mean you're retired? You're running a shop. Well, I'm retired from my other job, and this is my retirement job. What's your other job? It gets around there real quick. It's not hard to bring it out. I've talked to people that have backslidden, haven't been to church. I've talked to people that have got broken marriages. I've talked to people that have just got out of jail. I've talked to people that are on wife number 3. And that was talking to wife number 2. That was talking to a teenage kid that was about 18 years old who I've never seen in my life before. And they said, hey, Mark, I know you. And I said, how do you know me? And they said, well, with wife number 1, my dad used to take me to your church when I was in the youth group back in the days when you were running it. And now it's with a wife number 3. Very complicated, but they recognise me and they bring it up and they start to talk about it. And I talk to them about what they're doing and how they can possibly stay with wife number 3 instead of going to number 4. And you wouldn't believe how open they are. I've talked to people that are leaving their marriages. I'm talking to people that have made bad decisions and trying to fix it up. I've talked to drug addicts. It's pretty well endless, the amount of people that have come across my path. And I'm only working a couple of days a week, and God is putting up all of these appointments, helping me to be the church, not just here at 5 p.m, but be the church all the way through the week. What does your calendar look like as the church? What calendar does God have for you? What appointments Where's the Peggies when you're in a rush? Where's the Maxes that you should be fathering? You see, the church stands when the world falls apart and it all pretty well falls off the edge. The church is the one there with the answers to pick it up. The church is there to father the people that don't have the fathers. The church is there, people are there to help the Peggies who think no one's going to church and everyone around is saying, it's no good, no one's been there. And yet somebody is there to tell her it doesn't matter because their people are in church and you belong to it because God lives in you. We need to be a key part. I feel like I've done more pastoring since I've left running this church than I did when I was running it. Or did I? Let me close with this. Church at 5 p.m, this little spot. Just this one little spot. Tiny, tiny, tiny little spot on the calendar. Church at 5 p.m. is still very, very important. In fact, it's a key part of being a Christian and it's a key part of being the army. You can't stay at home and be an effective part of the church. In fact, if you stay at home and don't come to a 5 p.m. or a 10 p.m. spot, you will actually become fairly dysfunctional. Now, I know that you guys on the internet and you watch a million sermons, and I'm glad you clicked on mine. Hopefully you've already liked it before I got to this part. But you just can't stay at home and not be connected with the rest of the church. It's not God's plan. Jesus didn't come so you could stay at home. Jesus came so you could be the church 24/7, and 5 p.m. or 10 p.m. is part of it. And I want to tell you why in closing. It is a key fact of what needs to happen. There's 3 key things that need to happen in the 5 p.m. and they do. And I want to list them out to you. Number 1, you get to meet with people that are the same as you. In other words, following Christ. Do you know why Peggy was so... world was falling apart when, the church was closing and everyone else in the town didn't believe in it? Because she didn't get to meet with people and sit with people every single week that said, come on, Peggy, God's there for you. Come on, Peggy, you got this. Come on, Peggy, we're going to go together. Even if the pastor doesn't turn up, what about you come to my place for a cup of tea? And we might just be a very small church in this very small town, but at least you realise that there's key people. The devil wants to isolate you and make you think you're the only one doing what you do. No one in your work goes to church. You're the odd one out that's going there. This reminds you there are people in church. There are people going there, and it's very important not to end up like Peggy. The second thing you get at the 5 p.m. is this. You get to enter in to corporate praise and worship. And when someone... Now, I know you can put your iPod on. I got that. And I listen to my iPod and listen to praise and worship. I get that. But when you take the effort to block out 1 hour, hour and a half on a Sunday, and for part of that hour and a half, you get to stand there in the presence of God, that musicians are playing live and connecting live with God, and other people that are like-minded are singing and thanking God for what they're doing. Heaven is opened up over your life more than ever before. I hear more in the 20 minutes of praise and worship in a live service than I do for the rest of the week together, listening to iPods, watching things online, and hoping that God's going to answer my prayer when I'm going to sleep. It's like an open heaven in worship. And I'll get to it just in a minute why sometimes you don't feel like that. But that's what it's there for. This 5 p.m. puts you in like-minded people and gives you an open heaven. And let me tell you something about an open heaven. You know why it's open? And sometimes it's a little bit more open than the iPod or the worship you're listening to at home? Because you've got key musicians that have practiced and prayed and had a huddle before the service, and prayed on Tuesday night when they do their practice, and prayed before they did it, and sought God for what song they could play. and then put a team of like-minded people. If you're part of this band and you get to play on this platform, you are caught into a group of people that are literally going to bring the presence of God to a weary and tired people that have been out doing 7 days a week church, and for that half an hour, they just get to melt under the presence of God that someone else paid the price to bring that atmosphere into here. There is nothing like the atmosphere of being in live praise and worship in a church. Nothing like it. That's why you don't want to miss out on this. You can't afford to miss it. And the third thing is this. You get to hear an encouraging message that helps you take another step forward in your walk with God. You see, as the army and as the church, you can get saved and you can go to heaven and you can just do this and do nothing else. There's a whole bunch of things. Getting to heaven is not the big deal. It's a big deal, but it's not the big deal when you're a Christian. It's actually becoming the army and taking those steps forward that this Sunday, because you blocked out that little tiny square at the bottom, this Sunday, I hope that my message has encouraged you to be the church 7 days a week. You're not going to hear that at home. And let me tell you something, because I can say this now, I'm not the pastor. Pastor Sam, who's away on holidays, that 20-minute, 30-minute message that we give is not just our random thoughts when you walked in the door. We have prayed. We have sought God. Most messages that I preach, and I've done over 3,000 messages, I have days. I have sat there with God to work out how to articulate what I think He's saying. To read the Word and then understand it, get a revelation on it, and then have an illustration to show you how easy it is, and then put the stories together so that you walk out of here within 20-minute hit. You've got more understanding about the church being 7 days a week than you're ever going to learn by yourself being at home. Someone's paid the price. Don't ever dishonour that 20, 30-minute message that Sam or whoever else gives from this platform. Because you walked in out of a tough week. They have prayed and sought God and articulated what series we're going to work through it and how we're going to articulate it and what angles we can help people become the army, the church that God is trying to build. It's not about you being here. That's not the job. But it's how we can inspire you in this hour and a half so you can live the rest of that blank calendar that God's got for you. And I'll say this. I now work like you. I work Saturdays and Sundays a lot because it's just the job that I'm in. Most Sundays, I open up my shop and I get down there and open it up. And a lot of Sundays I'm there so late, I have to race from Lake Cat-Eye to be here from the beginning of the service. I stop people hiring stuff early on Sundays so they bring the boards back quick enough or the bikes back quick enough so I can still make this 5 p.m. And you know what? I'll fess up. I'm tired. And I don't want to go to church. And I'm like, can I just go home and swim in my pool? I'm retired. I've been to church every week for the last 25 years, if not running. Like, I get busyness, I get being tired, and I walk into this place sometimes and I sit just over there and people are singing and people are preaching and I find my brain, just dozing off, like, oh, they're just singing another song, instead of, it's disrespectful for what God has presented that we can enter into. I hear Sam talking or whoever's talking, I'm going, yeah, I know how this is going to end, and the verse says this, and I'll quote the verse in my head, and oh yeah, you made a good point about that. Oh my goodness, how long does this finish? And I nod to her and say, Shri, aren't you so glad that we don't have to do this anymore? And she goes, what do you mean so glad? She goes, I want to get back into it. I'm missing it. And I'm like, oh, I should have nodded. So Chris, aren't you glad you don't have to? Because yeah, I'm glad we don't have to get there and preach. Glad I don't have to spend 2 days, working out a sermon. Not him. He's great. He's on my side. She's not. She's on the other side. I want to do it. But you hear what I'm saying? And my point is, as we close, is don't ever disrespect this. I've made a big deal about church 7 days a week, but don't disrespect this hour and a half. Someone's made a way for you, and I come every single Sunday, if I'm in town and Cat-Eye, and I push through the praise and God speaks to me. And I listen to what Sam says, and I've got as much revelation out of what Sam has preached as I ever had of any one of my own messages that I've preached. Because someone's paid the price so that you get an hour and a half of everything laid out for you. Never disrespect the church. Don't disrespect the 5 p.m. Don't disrespect the worship. Don't disrespect the preacher. By not disrespect like verbally, disrespect him because you're not engaging and listening and saying, God, how is that helping me? You know what annoys me a lot when I used to run a church? How people would come to church and sit in church. And then after church, they'd go, oh, you know, Mark, can I just have half an hour of your time? I said, oh, yeah, sure, what for? Oh, I just want this problem. I said, did you not listen to what I just said for the last half an hour? Did you not listen to what I just said for the last week? It's like, oh, la la land while people are preaching, and then they want to pull you aside and ask you to fix their problem, and then take it one step further. If you can't fix your problem, then they blame you for causing the problem. Because I'm supposed to represent God because I'm a head of the church. So therefore, if they bring their problem to me, I can magically wave my red pen and magically make it all go away. Hey, you made bad decisions. Own it. I can give you advice on how to make better decisions, but I can't fix every problem you've already caused. He's called Jesus. And if you've made a mistake, take it to him and he will fix you up. Come on, as the band comes. As the band comes. Look at all these notes. I could have preached for a month. Oh, I've got so many more cool stories, but you know, when Sam lets me preach in another 6 months, I might share another one. As the band comes and the board goes, here's my final remarks for you. Take time for the Peggies. Help the Maxes. Be here at 5 p.m. Respect the full-time pastors and what God's called them to do. Be generous to the house with both your finance and your serving. And don't get lukewarm because God will spit you out. And to all of us, no matter what we do, let's become the army of God that works 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.